So how are you liking the X-Mid so far?
The X-Mid is, I think, pretty much everything that Dan says it is. The pitch is super fast, super solid. The only, like, it's not a complaint in the design, and I think Dan knows this, is that, like, I'm 6'3", and it's a real tight fit. This is the one person solid. I got that for a reason, for exactly like this kind of trip, you know, shoulder season, where you might have some snow, you might not, but you know, I think I've used it in the winter. I've used it on one other trip, and it's a good tent. For me personally, I find it a little cramped. I might actually just sleep sometimes, because I'm kind of weird. You know, I like to sleep in tarps. I might just use it as a tarp.
Like take out the inner and then...
But I might, like even on tonight, I might just unclip the inner and then use the inner as a ground sheet.
Okay, yeah.
And then I'll gain space.
Yep.
It's pretty mild conditions. You know, if for some reason there was a lot of blowing snow, or I thought that I was going to get advantages from having the inner, then I could pop it up.
Yeah.
And if I happen to be somewhere where there's tons of bugs, touching the sidewall is not as bad as being eaten alive.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, to me, like, there's all kinds of things going on. I'm convinced it is, like, for most people, like a one-person shelter, this thing, I mean, it's hard to explain how solid this thing is.
Yeah, I've had it in sand, in crazy wind, and rain, and it was like, it blew out, but that's just because I didn't put enough rocks on the stake. It
is solid. So
yeah,
you know, I think it's a great tent.
And I think, like, if you had the two-person, you'd probably be like, this thing's roomy.
This thing's roomy.
Yeah.
But it might, like, I like things really light too.
Yeah.
So
trade-offs.
And the other thing is, I'm not really a pole guy, a trekking pole guy.
Yeah.
So, you know, on these kind of trips where I'm bringing poles, it's not a big deal. I also have the poles that he sells, which they come out, the two of them together, to 7.5 ounces, which is lighter than a single trekking pole in most cases.
Yeah. So,
and other times I do carry one trekking pole. So if I carry one trekking pole, one of those, that's 3 ounces, you get a pretty solid tent. Nice. But I mean, most people use trekking poles. Yeah, most people do. Like I would have died I would have died today if I didn't have trekking poles. You would have been carrying me up the hill there. But so I'm the exception, not the rule. But yeah, it's a cool tent. It's a great tent. I like, you couldn't. It would be hard to tell someone, like, no, don't buy that tent. Like, it's hard to not recommend, or it's hard to not recommend the tent.